So here's a quick workshop itinerary. We're going to really quickly go through an intro and some philosophy, just basically giving you a background of what we're going to be talking about. And then we're going to, Steve will take over. He's going to give you a little bit of his intro and then work with you guys on tennis mechanics. I had no clue what the stroke was supposed to look like, what it was supposed to feel like. So if I was going to work with one of Steve's players and I was going to try to speak their language or try to relate what I was doing in the gym with what they were doing on the court, I wasn't able to do that. So I think that's where the value in a workshop like this is going to be, because it's not just training, or you're not going to just a tennis seminar. It's both combined, and how you can kind of bridge that gap. A lot of the times the clients will come in, they'll be thinking about just getting bigger, getting stronger. We've got to understand that there are a lot of underlying things that have to get taken care of first, and building a foundation before we go ahead and add strength and power and all those things that they're looking to get from working with you. Fascia is probably the biggest factor that affects mobility. Okay? A lot of times we always think of muscles, individual muscles, and what those individual muscles are designed to do. But if the fascia is in some way restricted with trigger points, denser areas of tissue, scar tissue from old injuries and overuse, you're not going to be able to get the length and mobility and range of motion in a joint. Next factor affecting function and that foundation, stability, right? And this is kind of a weird one, but actually limited range of motion affects stability too. So you would think that that's kind of, that's more of a mobility thing. No, it's, if you have limited range of motion in your hips, it's going to affect your stability, right? So just as an example, a single leg deadlift, right? If I'm, holding on a single leg and I'm pushing my heel back behind me, if I don't have good mobility in my hips, I'm not going to be very stable in that hip joint, right? So first and foremost, you need to have that range of motion there at the joint to even create the opportunity to have stability. A simple way it's an easy way to explain to people, especially if you have a player that comes to you, or a coach or pro that comes to you and they want to know what what the different goals are. It's sometimes hard to start to talk about the reactive neuromuscular training and feed the mistake and getting people to kind of learn the sequencing of the movements and firing their core first. This is an easy way to explain it. How do we learn movement? You learn it by feel, right? So just because I put you on a stretching table, and just because we work on activating your glutes in almost like a physical therapy environment where you're getting muscles to activate, you're getting core to activate, getting shoulder blades, you got good posture, everything looks perfect, and you throw that person on the field and it's just not clicking. And that goes to here. It's all got to work as one integrated chain.
About 4 years ago, I went to Wimbledon with one of my players. And there's very limited practice courts. So you really have to practice on grass to be good on it. It's totally different than any other surface. And we looked around, and I'm there, and he was a junior playing. So he wasn't very experienced amongst the top players. And we were worried we were going to have problems finding a practice court. We look around at this whole row of courts, and we see Federer and Nadal and Sharapova, some of the best players in the world, and nobody's hitting a tennis ball. Everyone's there doing functional mobility. Everyone's there doing movement prep. Everyone's there doing planks. And this wasn't even training. This was their preparation before their match. And I thought to myself, well, there's got to be something that's really significant here. That these players, these are the best players in the world, and it wasn't just one or two of them doing something which is fringe. Here's the mainstream of the best players in the world, all focusing on preparing themselves for playing what they consider the most important tennis tournament in the world by doing non-tennis skills. This is a tremendously important issue with recreational players, because they come up with two specific events. One is injuries. As you get better and better, you're going to be creating more and more force. When you have a racket in your hand, basically that racket is nothing more than just a weight. And when you're swinging that weight, and when you're swinging that weight incorrectly, you're creating a lot of force. That force is at the end of your hand, so it's an exponential force. And there's tremendous risk of shoulder injuries. You get a lot of players. Then I want to go into giving everyone what I would consider to be a good fundamental template of what exactly the tennis movements are. I think when Frank goes into the discussion of the specific types of exercises that you can do with tennis players, it's a good idea first to know what the end result of what you're going to try to allow these players to perform is. So that, ultimately in tennis, the goal is to